Welcome to Sumbits, where we decode the PowerSchool development experience. Sumbits is brought to you by MBA. Let's start the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Sumbits. Wonderful, wonderful to be here. So happy to have a guest with us today. And if you guys know the face, then you've probably been to a couple recent PSUGs where he finally started showing up and introducing himself to some people. But definitely happy to say we have Rob Staats with us today. If you don't know that name, you probably should. And if you're not aware of how he comes to be on the podcast, he's coming to us from PSCB reports. You probably have heard of that. You probably even have a couple of his reports installed. But before we get into that too much, today, changing it up a little bit. Normally I'm a bourbon guy or a rye guy. This is actually an American whiskey today. This is Talnua. This is actually a distillery based out of Denver, Colorado, and a friend of mine's wife is one of the co-founders. So very cool to be sipping on that today. It's actually the first, I believe it's the first copper single pot still whiskey distillery in the States. So very cool. Check it out if you get a chance. What are you guys drinking today?
Well, I'm still sticking with the brews. I'm drinking one of my favorites, brewed out of Winnipeg here, from the Trans-Canada Brewing Company, the Arrow. I'm not sure if anyone's going to know what that image is on there. It's the Avro Arrow, which was... I can't give you a conclusive history of it. However, it is an attempt at a Mach 2 fighter jet Canada had made 60 years ago that then got canceled and caused a lot of controversy. Look it up; it's interesting. But that's what that's named after. If that one is not enough, I'm going to go try out a Space Kitty. I have not tried this. The can caught my eye. I'll let you know after.
What kind is that?
It's a juicy IPA. It's another Manitoba brew.
That is right up my alley. Eric, what are you sipping on today? You going back to the old regular norm?
So I don't know if I've done this one on an episode of Sumbits yet, but this is a well-known brew and one of my absolute favorites of all time. Fat Tire out of Colorado. It's an amber ale, and it's just absolutely delightful. Why am I forgetting the name of the brewery? Somebody help me out here.
New Belgium.
New Belgium. Can't get me enough Fat Tire.
That's one I can get up here. So
Is it really?
I've had many times. Yep, it's good.
It's definitely a good one. Rob, are you joining us with the drink today?
Well, it's a little early for spirits, but I have my favorite drink, which is a tea with lemon and a slice of ginger root. Very healthy.
Nice.
But I am partial to red wines, and particularly those from Argentina. And the one I would recommend is the one here, Claus de Argentine. It's a Malbec. Excellent.
Very nice. I did have a little stint with wine for a while, and I always found that the South American, specifically the Chileans, were always really good as well.
I like the heavy, the ones that have I think because I'm not a wine guy at all, but I want to say almost like the chocolatey profile.
A lot of the Chileans were pretty fruity, not like candy fruit, but anyway, we don't have to get into wine. Let's talk about what we're actually here for. Yeah. Rob, how are you today, bud?
Doing just fine. Thank you for the
Awesome.
invite.
Definitely happy to have you here. We're going to start, just kind of throw it your way and let us know, and let our listeners know and viewers who you are, kind of where you come from and how you came to be the PSCB or one of the two PSCB guys. And we can get into your silent partner, not so silent, but I know he does a lot of work. So I'll let you kind of do your own intro here.
Well, just to give you a brief background, I have 27 years of experience in K through 12 education. First as a teacher, supervisor, and my final position was the director of technology here in 2 school districts in New Jersey. I have a degree in math education, master's in computer science and statistics, and I've had a keen interest in computer programming and student information systems for the past 35 years. And I guess you would classify me as a first generation coder because I've been coding in multiple programming languages since I was a high school senior. And
Wow.
If you do the math, that's a lot of years.
I think that would put you in that same realm as an OG like Roger Sprick.
Yeah, possibly. So in 2091, I decided to take early retirement and focus more on my consulting business that I had started 10 years earlier. And the business provided consulting services for a wide range of things: network planning, technology planning, curriculum development. But the emphasis was really on student information systems. And after retirement, that really became my focus.
Gotcha. So it originally wasn't just all about, PowerSchool reports and whatnot. It was kind of started out as a little more broader than that, I guess it should be.
Yeah, I worked in a school district that really was technology minded, and we were there at the very beginning stages. We had grants from Apple Computer and were selected to design one of their first networks, which was called Apple Talk. And as a result of that, we actually entertained school districts for tours from all over the Mideast. And then we got involved with international schools, which had a branch here in Princeton. And I started working with them, and we actually hosted their conference for a period of 7 years. So it's been some really nice experiences. So that's where it started. But then after that, in retirement, it really became PowerSchool.
Gotcha.
So when you got into it then, when you got into the PowerSchool side of things, is it a common question we'll ask people is what was the first version? Where were you? And I'm curious to hear your answer here now.
Okay. Well, let me give you a little history of PowerSchool because I was there from the very beginning stages and have been fortunate to work with it for the last 2 decades. So you may or may not know that the first version was actually created by a gentleman called Greg Porter. And he started developing things like this when he was a high school student. And in 1997, he published the first version. And it was unique because it was really one of the first web-based SIS platforms. And he installed the first installation in South Summit District in Utah. And things went really well because 5 years later, the product was bought by Apple Computer in 2001. And then Pearson acquired it in 2006. It was sold to Vista Equity Partners in 2015. And then another equity firm, Onyx, bought 50% in 2018.
That's the Canadian side.
Yeah. And as a little tidbit there, Greg Porter actually was the Apple VP for the first 2 years after he sold the product. And now he works as a member of Porter Ventures. So I mention that because from the very start, when Apple bought it, I became involved with it. And it started when I had a colleague who was a superintendent at a school district called me up one day and asked me if I wanted to do consulting and training for this new product they bought called PowerSchool. And she knew that I was doing a lot of work with student information systems, WinSchool, MacSchool, SASE, and she thought I might be interested. Now, I was aware of the product because I knew Apple had purchased it, and I had a 15-year ongoing relationship with Apple on a wide range of educational tech initiatives. So I agreed to take the contract, and I got involved. And I have to tell you, I was really impressed. One, because it was web-based, and I thought it would be a good choice for people that I was working with to make a change because the systems they were using were getting a little tired and out of date. And it turned out to be the case. So
Yeah.
after that first client, I basically set up presentations for all of my other clients to see PowerSchool. And within a period of 1 year, all of them adopted the program. And at that point, I became somewhat of an advocate for PowerSchool. So Apple invited me to their conferences, other presentations they were doing for school districts. And quite quickly, PowerSchool became the program of choice here in New Jersey. And of course, that was good for me because my client base increased dramatically in the first 3 years.
I'm sure.
So I kind of stumbled into it, but I got to tell you, looking back, it was one heck of a career move. So good decision.
So much for retiring, huh?
Yeah. I don't think I ever will, to be honest with you. I'm really enjoying this too much. So that's a little bit of background. I guess you want to maybe ask some questions or how we got started.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, and I think I already forgot what I was about to ask. Oh, no, I remembered what I was going to ask here. So, I mean, obviously now, so you've been working with it for a long time here, and we know what we know what, and we're going to get to this part, but we know what you're doing with it now. What were you doing with it back then? Like, what were these consultations? Were you doing a lot of just training, or were you one of the pioneers? Were you one of the early customizers back when the customizing was? And we've heard how the customizations used to go back then. Mm-hmm. So were you one of those folks, or were you now just on the training side? And if it wasn't starting out with customizations, what got you into the customizations?
Well, at first it was really doing the implementations and the training, and I also worked with the people at Apple to assist them in setting up PowerSchool for New Jersey school districts because they didn't really understand the ins and outs of state reporting. But after that, very quickly I got into customizing because, as we know, that's one of the strengths of PowerSchool, mm-hmm. and started customizing pages and designing our own. Of course, you know, at that time, there were some constraints. You really could only modify a stock page or create one of your new ones. And then the only way to really publish it was to use CPM to copy to the server, and it had to be all the files in the right location. So it was, tedious. But then page fragments and plugins came along, and I brought on board Michael Moore, who was the PowerSchool administrator for one of the districts I was working with. And we started doing a lot of customizations together. And that's where PDS comes in. We all know that Power Data Solution was the go-to place at that time. Mm-hmm. And it was started by Jason Treadwell, and they had published some really high quality stuff. And a lot of it was from Rogers Brick, Brian Andel, who was part of that group at the time before he went to PowerSchool, Romney Backus. I'm sure there's others that I'm missing. But that's where we really learned about customizations and what was possible. So this project that we started, though it didn't officially have a name, started almost about 10 years ago. And the plugins that were on PDS were good, but the design and the formatting varied from one to another because different developers were submitting them. So we took every CRP plugin, we completely redesigned it, formatted its elements, added enhancements, and we created a brand new library. And on top of that, we added lots of our own customizations. And then I started using that with my clients throughout New Jersey. Going forward and doing conferences and PSOG sessions, the plugins became, very popular. We had more and more people that were asking about, how they could get them. And that presented a problem because we really didn't have a platform. And I wasn't sure how to go about it. So the first decision was that, I'm part of the PowerSchool community. PDS gave me a lot. And I made a decision that everything we had done to that point was going to be posted and made freely available to the entire PowerSchool community. Now, as you can imagine, there was a lot of people that thought I was absolutely crazy for doing that. That was just what I wanted to do. It was my give back and my thank you for being a part of this community and how much I've enjoyed, working with it. So the question was, well, where are we going to put this? PDS had kind of gone dormant because the people that were involved with it moved on to other things. The bundles that they created that were really good at first were no longer being supported. It had been almost 4 or 5 years. And as a result, they were causing problems with later versions of PowerSchool. And people were posting a lot of questions that nobody was really responding to. So I sent an email to Jason Treadwell, and I asked him, we have the library. Would it be okay if we update everything that's there and begin posting? It took about 2.5 months for him to respond, which gave us plenty of time to continue development. He finally said yes. So what we did is we took the entire library and we put it on PDS. Adam, I can't mention his last name, basically was maintaining the server and taking care of all the registrations. I designed some elements that made it easier for people like a directory to get to the plugins and to download them. And, we went from there. They've been there for 5 years, freely posted. We support them. We enhance them regularly based on suggestions from the PowerSchool community. And it's been a great success.
I have a question for you, Rob. Sorry, I'm kind of skipping topics a little bit here, but you were talking earlier about a lot about the history of PowerSchool, and you really made me wonder, do you know, I have no idea, when PowerSchool was initially released, has it always been built on, again, one of the biggest benefits of the PowerSchool SIS is the customizability. Has it been customizable since day one? Was it built with that in mind? Or is that something that evolved based on feedback from users?
Yeah, I think it's something that it evolved, though I can't say for sure or when. But I don't remember doing customizations the early part of the 2000s.
Well, and I wondered too, that makes me wonder, and I don't, it's more of a rhetorical question here, but, did it evolve as a thing from feedback, or was it because people looked into their server and saw a web root and were like, I wonder if,
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think that just the fact that it was web-based kind of opened that door of possibility. And I'm sure somebody at some point was just like, hey, I think I can do some things.
And then they started a forum and said, hey, by the way, you can just go here and do this.
Look what I found.
Well, you're right. I think it was always possible, but the question was, what was the access to actually get the customizations on the server itself?
Right.
Yeah.
And then when CPM came along and you had that ability, then we started seeing a lot of customizations. But again, it was time consuming. And as we know, every time PowerSchool updated a source page, you had to keep track of what you customized and go back and redo it. Well, of course, now everything we do is page fragments or totally new pages, and that's not really an issue anymore.
Yeah, it begs the question again. Here we are kind of going off the main topic, but I mean, PowerSchool has definitely done their best to make customizations easier throughout the years and less conflicting with the core. But I mean, how much was that them saying, let's make it easier for people, or versus let's make our support system less, flooded with people saying their core, pages aren't working, make it easier to deal with things because now the core system files aren't being modified.
I think it was an everybody wins scenario.
Yeah, definitely was.
Well, Jason Springle has always been a real supporter of PSCB. And I think he recognizes that we provide the community with some resources that people would like to have, and they're not readily available on PowerSchool itself. And I think that it's a good partnership, an informal one, but he does do shout outs to us on occasion.
Well, and I think in the spirit of customizations, doesn't he still I don't know if regularly is the right word, but doesn't he still submit to the exchange?
He does.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's still within the spirit of customizations.
Absolutely.
Now, when we started, we posted all of our customizations to both the Exchange and the Power Data Solutions,
Right.
and only the reports went on Power Data or on PBS. We're to the point now that we really can't maintain the customizations in multiple areas, and I'm sure in a few moments we'll talk about PSCB and where we're going from here. But I do want to take a moment just to talk about the transition of the people that I've worked with. As I told you before, I was working with Michael from a district I worked with, but unfortunately, Michael's district switched from PowerSchool to another SIS program, which meant that he was not available for assistance. And as you can imagine, that sent me into a panic because here I made the decision we're going to post all these plugins. And my partner.
And then you lost your guy.
Yeah, it's missing in action.
Well, it explains. So it explains that I remember that name, but it was a name that kind of disappeared over the years. And I mean, there's I guess why.
Yeah, if you look on the Exchange, you'll see Michael was the one that posted the base resources, the Power Scheduler reports. He did a lot with the incident management. So he was a really valuable member of the team. So I reached out. I have a number of contacts through districts I work with, and one of them was Manjeet Basra, and he worked in a district that I had basically provided services for a period of about 8 years. So I knew him, and I knew his talents, and they are exceptional. So I asked him if he would come on board, and he said yes. And thank goodness he did, or there wouldn't be any PSCB today. And he has really been a driving force. And I think we have really improved some of the things that we've done and taken them to another level. And wait and see what he's working on as we move forward. Some really nice things.
So Manjeet's more of the wizard behind the curtain.
Yeah, my programming skills are okay,
Yeah.
but I'm not on the level of Manjeet or Adam or even Eric. I mean, I can design the reports. I build most of the elementary queries, but when it comes to the bells and whistles and things that I would like to see happen, that's what I give Manjeet the call. Could I do some of that? Yeah, it could take anywhere from 2 hours to 2 days, and Manjeet would be half an hour. There's no reason not to have him involved.
Can I just say, Rob, you kind of piqued my curiosity there, and I'm guessing that you might be a little tight with this one, but for those folks that are listening and not watching, a minute ago, Rob, you said, wait to see what he's working on. And you got a real twinkle in your eye and a little smirk there. So there's some interesting stuff coming from PSCB, I suspect, based on your facial expression when you said, wait to see what he's working on.
Yes. So do you want to talk a little bit about PSCB and what we...
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's go there.
So we're in a position where Adam really didn't want to maintain the site anymore and or do the registrations. And
I never liked that guy anyway.
Okay, well, I should be okay. Remember, I didn't mention the last name. And we don't own the domain name. So if my business, RAS Technology, was going to have a site, one, we had to have the domain name, which I purchased, PSCB Development. And I also had to have control of the server, which I completely developed with a friend who is a web developer. which was a lot of fun. I used to do a lot of that in my previous career. And we decided we were going to take everything and move it to this new site. And we're doing it in stages. The first stage was to move over all the customizations, which we have completed. The site went online on Thursday for registrations, and we have 200 in the first couple of days, so that's a good start. And all of those we decided are going to continue to be free. So that represents about 25 plugins and numerous customization pages, including standard reports that were done by Bob Cornicolia and Matt Friend, and also the custom public portal, which is one of our most popular plugins.
I'll just say a collective thank you from the PowerSchool community. I'll put it in everybody's mouth right now and say, yep, thank you.
So I wanted to continue doing things free, but in all honesty, it just was not feasible. Yes, they've been free, but people probably didn't realize that there was a cost all these years for doing this. And my company was subsidizing the entire project, which I was more than happy. I'm now retiring from PowerSchool Consulting at the end of this year, and my only focus is going to be on PSC development. And as a result of that, there's got to be some support from the community. So what we're going to be doing is that the report bundles, which we are finalizing, are going to be published probably sometime in the next couple of months, and they'll be on a subscription basis. I know you guys don't like people advertising, so I'm not trying to do that. I'm just making you aware. But the fee is going to be so minimal that I doubt that anybody would balk at getting 21 plugins and 250 reports for between $250 and $900.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's still reasonable, and I can continue with the project along with Manjeet, and we'll continue to work on this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the value it has given to people over the years, and the benefits of basically it existing versus it not existing, are going to be worthwhile for anybody to continue on with. And then, you know, I hope people want to continue on with it on the other side of it too. You know, not just on the free side, because it's such a great project that you've been running and that's existed for so long. I would hate to see any way of it disappear.
Can I just say how, speaking of the reports themselves, I really enjoy following the PSUG.io user group online, and how many times I've lost count that someone's posted a question, I need this information, and the answer is there's a CRB, now PSCB report for that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know there have been times, I feel like I've said this on the podcast before, when somebody's come to me and said, and to the point of cost as well that you were just talking about, Rob, and again, not trying to promote, but let's just be honest. I've had clients come to me and say, hey, I need a quote, I need this report built. And this was several years ago. And, you know, the answer was, well, yeah, I could build that for you from scratch, and it'd probably cost you, 10 hours times X amount of dollars per hour, or you could get it for free by downloading the custom reports bundle. And that's just one report that they were willing to pay for.
And you can have it installed in, 10 minutes and be done and using it.
So, what if it needs just a slight tweak?
What if it needs just a slight tweak? Well, I hate to encourage people to hack plugins via CPM, but
I know I'm baiting Rob here for the answer.
Well, the answer is that when we posted these, we posted them with a disclaimer that says these are freely posted, and you are free to use them and customize them in any way that you want. And everything we have published to date, both customizations and reports, will remain in the public domain forever. So if people want to continue to use those, that's fine, but we no longer can support them or do the enhancements. that's going to have to come from the new site. And even on the new site, if you want to tweak or customize, what we do, whether it be a report or a customization, we actually encourage people to do that. That's how we make our plugins better. If somebody wants an enhancement, they ask us about it, and usually within a month or so, we've included it into the plugin, and then we repost it. And I would say that we probably have done close to 50, 60 enhancements during this time period.
That's awesome.
And that is awesome. And that's what I was getting at there. I wanted you to be able to share that, because it is a really great. It's very generous of you to open it up like that and not be all like, this is what we have, but don't touch it. This is ours. It's just very nice that you being part of the community, and it's still supporting the community and not just providing these plugins, but allowing people to freely be able to modify them as needed too.
Yeah. And let's be honest, somebody at some point is going to probably try to do that and possibly break something, but then learn some customizations along the way to figure out how to fix it.
Yep. You just brought up an amazing point, I think, because I do a lot of teaching at PSEG events, and one of the things that I always stress to people when they're trying to learn, whether it be JavaScript stuff or SQL stuff, is you have access with plugins that other people have written to go into CPM and view that code. You know what? You need to understand something about how scheduling is done underneath the hood in the tables. Go look at the SQL behind some of these reports. It's such a great, even if you're not going in there to tinker with things and modify things and potentially break things, they're a great resource as a learning tool for your own customization efforts. Absolutely.
The old.
That's how we learn from PDS.
Sorry, say that again, Rob.
That's how we learned from PDS, looking at the SQL that they had created and adding some of our own and enhancing the reports. It was a learning process for both Manjit and I.
For me, just exactly what you're speaking to there, of Eric. It was the old CRB reports that were targeting Power Teacher Gradebook, not Power Teacher Pro, but Power Teacher Gradebook, because those tables were a complete different, architecture and set, and especially just how they were, referenced to each other. So that the old reports in there were what helped me get my foot into figuring out those ones and those tables, a decade ago.
Yeah, we were probably one of the first groups that actually created customizations for Power Teacher Pro and also Power Teacher. And you mentioned the CRB. There were some hurdles when we first went onto the site. First of all, I was really sensitive about not wanting to step on the toes of the people before me, because they really were the people that created this site and made it available. And then we also had to deal with the fact that the older plugins were there, and there was a lot of confusion about what was CRB and what was PSCB. And I spent a lot of time the first year explaining the difference and which ones they should be.
So obviously
I don't envy that challenge you had, because although I immediately recognized it when it was a new thing, that was probably just because I had the benefit of knowing, having a little bit more technical insight into things. I know I was explaining it to people when I was supporting various customers for various reasons, when they were having issues with their old customizations and saying things have changed, and I'm like, okay, well, this is a new product now. And I didn't know, honestly, all the background as to why, as you're explaining today, but I did know that it was a new product and it was a revamped version.
So one thing I want to ask is, on top of what Ryan's asking is, we're talking about CRB and we're talking about PSCB. I don't think we've actually mentioned what those actually stand for. So I'll let Rob kind of go through that as well. And when did that change from CRB to PSCB actually happen?
Well, CRB, I believe, is for custom reports bundles. And PSCB is for PowerSchool Custom Bundles. So they're pretty similar, but we had to come up with a new acronym. And we created this project, PSCB Development, probably a year before we decided to go and post it live. And there's no real mystery or history to the name. It was just something we threw together. Yeah. But we did answer a lot of questions about CRB in the beginning, because most of the comments on PDS were directed to a report, and I had to explain to the users, well, that's not really one of ours, and I'm not sure how I can help you. You may want to try this new one that we posted. So that went on for some time, but eventually I think everybody switched over.
So I have a question for you, Rob, and
Okay.
for you, Ryan, and maybe even you, Sean. We were talking a little bit earlier about digging into these reports and digging into CPM and the back end of things to learn about stuff. And Rob, I know Manjeet has done a lot of the development, but I think you've done some yourself. I'm curious, Ryan, you were talking about the reports that related to the old Power Teacher grade book.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest challenge in PowerSchool when it comes to writing reports or any type of customization, even if it's not a report? Is there something that really sticks out in your mind? Like, this was a rough one, making this function just based on the schema of PowerSchool and the table structure and the different joins that we had to do, and understanding how this data is stored in order to generate the information that we need for a human readable report. All right, Ryan's excited. I want to hear Rob's answer first, if he's got something in his head, though.
Well, there's a number of them. When you design a report, it's with the understanding that the users on the other end have set up certain things in PowerSchool correctly.
Yeah.
For example, you have a report and I'm getting comments that there's no tardies. Well, they didn't go to the setup for the codes and mark the category that's tardy, thus no tardies. Or they haven't completed their conversion tables and they have codes that have no value. So suddenly they call up and they say, Sally Jones has 180 absences for the year. Well, they didn't have an FTE, or they had a code that basically didn't have a value. So those are things that you can predict are going to happen, but there's no way you can avoid it. You just have to assist them. So what I've done for the last year is I actually do online Zoom sessions and provide support, which is nice because I've had a chance to meet a lot of users and work through the things that they're struggling with. But it makes me aware of some of the things that we need to know about the next time we're customizing something.
So your answer is attendance, and I agree with that. Right down to the reaching out and identifying those things. The additional challenge I found layered onto that was it was a coin toss as to whether or not what you found was missing or the issue causing the calculation to not calculate correctly. It was a 50-50 shot whether that was something they forgot or that's just how they do it. And then now you have to, pivot in a different direction because that's how they do it. And that their 50% case then translates to, let's two other districts where one does it kind of like that and the one does it kind of like that but different. So attendance, I agree 100% though, as being one of those challenging hurdles as far as getting a consistent customization for the masses with.
Well, Alabama is a perfect example. In Alabama, the whole state uses PowerSchool, and their attendance is a conversion from period to daily day. So that's fine. It calculates the value that you send to the state, but then they don't take that and put it into the daily attendance. So there's no, quote, daily attendance code. So they run our daily attendance reports and they come up blank and they don't understand why. So you have to explain to them about, setting the first period to be rich and get your daily attendance to start the day. And I've gotten a few of them to do that, but I think more and more are going to do it next year now that they know, what the process is.
I'm really glad I asked that question because you went in a different direction than I expected you to go. But it's a great conversation. Like when I asked that question to you about the difficulties of writing certain reports, I was thinking at the time more along the terms of what's the schema like. Like I expected you to say incident management.
That's what I was thinking immediately.
That's the roughest thing, the table structure behind it. But
That's the exact thing I thought of.
Yeah, that and test scores.
Yeah. But I love what you said because I've felt that pain myself as well, Rob, particularly in developing the report creator, because that reports attendance. So as you started talking about attendance, it made me think of the pains that we've had there. Folks call and they say, your attendance is not populating properly in the report creator, and the answer is no. Your attendance is not set up properly. And the phrase I always use is garbage in, garbage out.
Sounds just like me.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a little shout out, and not a promotion because this is a free plugin, but I'm going to give a shout out to MBA. We actually created, as a result of that very problem of attendance coming out improperly in the reports, and our support staff having to then actually help not just support our plugins, but because our plugins were reporting attendance, helping folks to troubleshoot these attendance problems, we created a free plugin. Well, it's part of the report creator, but we also made it available separately as a free plugin, the ADA/ADM configuration audit. Just going in, like you were saying, Rob, some of the common problems. What are they when your attendance isn't coming out properly? Do we have invalid FTEs? Is our calendar set up inappropriately? Are our attendance conversions not complete? So for folks out there struggling with attendance issues like that, and I don't know, maybe Rob, you have something in your reports with PSCB to identify common configuration problems too.
We have a validation bundle that basically displays all the information, but I often tell people to use the plugin you just mentioned because there's some additional items in there that kind of take it to the next level. So it's nice that they can do both, and it is free as well. Now, you talked about incident management. Well, let me tell you how I feel about that.
Let's hear it.
So, do I need to get out the buzzer?
To take those reports and dig a hole and have them gone forever, it would be great. But we know that that's not practical. But there are things coming out that I think do a great job with incident management reporting. In fact, PowerSchool has just created a new section that gives them a lot of that information. So we're still going to do one, but it's going to be pared down, completely rewritten. But I'm going to encourage people to look at some of the other resources that are out there. A perfect example is a report card. We have one that's available. It's a poor man's report card, but for people that really want something that's robust, you've got the NBA report creator. And essentially all my clients use that, and I've developed report cards for them for years. So if you want to take it to that level, this is where you need to go. So it's not just what we offer, it's making known the resources that are available. And on the new site, we have a source, we have a menu. There's PowerSchool resources that list companies that offer those. We have the community contributions, which are links to plugins that have been posted freely by PowerSchool users all over. And they're easy to access and install if you like.
So I gotta say, so at the conferences, typically, I know I've mentioned this on previous episodes, but I typically do the help desk and the one-on-ones, and I am going to reference that website quite a bit because previously I've always had to go, okay, get out your pen and pad. Here's the list of 7-8 different places that you can go to get resources for things. So if I can just tell them one website that you created and has all of those listed, that's perfect for me. So thank you.
PDF document with descriptions and links to all the locations.
That's awesome.
And we also have a new section too that's going to be PowerSchool tutorials, and it's going to be how-to guides. And the first one we put on there is on how to create page fragments by Bob Dalton, and we hope to have more of those as we move forward.
Cool.
We really want it to be one place that people could go to find out about the PowerSchool resources that are available for use.
Can I ask Rob, since we brought this up, I think this is just the best topic. When you talk about the community contributions, can you think off the top of your head of a few of your favorites? Because when I teach customizations to folks, I always say rule number one is don't build it if you can steal it. And when I say steal it, I use the air quotes, right? Because there's so much stuff out there that's freely available, and you've compiled this list, which you're sharing with folks of other folks' community contributions. Are there any in particular that really stick out in your mind that you think our listeners should know about?
Well, one would be Adam's Mass Print, which is just a fantastic plugin, because not only does it give you the ability to mass print student screens that are built into PowerSchool, we customize it so that you can now mass print any PSCB screen as well.
Oh.
Yeah. And then we have, of course, Manjeet. Before he started working with me, he created probably one of the most popular plugins of all time called Multi-Select. And, that's probably...
Can we get a round of applause for that?
Yeah,
That's
we're talking like 5,000-6,000, downloads.
So before you go on...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Before you move on, you brought up two different plugins there, and I don't know if we know where to go to find those things.
Okay.
So Adam's Mass Print, Schmadam's Mass Print, is that on Aurora Ed Tech? Is it on the Exchange? I'm not really sure. Or is it on PSCB?
If you go to PSCB and you go to the menu links, you'll see that there's a link for community contributions. It will bring up a page with about 40 free plugins.
Okay.
It has the developer, a description, and there's a link that takes you directly to the site where you can download the plugin.
So anything that you bring up here, if they want to figure out how to get to it, you've got a link to get to it from PSCB. Sorry, that's the take home.
Yeah, and I will put a link in the description.
I was just going to say, but so just to spell it out, it's PSCBdevelopment.com. And that's correct. But we're definitely going to make sure we throw a link to that in the comments for this video or in the description for this video.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, Rob. I think you had some other of your favorites that you were thinking about.
Well, anything that's done by Romney, Backus, and Rogers Sprick, I think they do fantastic customizations. They've been longtime contributors. At some point, I'd like to have a conversation with Romney about her international school experiences and the ones that I've had in the past, because I think we probably share a lot of the the same feelings about how great it is to work with people abroad. And let's see, who else? Oh, there's this guy named Eric Chattel, and he has this customization reference that's free. And
I hear it's awesome.
Yeah,
Chattel.
it is.
Oh, I love Chattel.
And I'll be honest with you, that I've sat in on many of your presentations, and you always make reference to that. And when I'm building a report and I need to go and refresh my memory on something that I don't remember, it's a perfect place to go. So I always say, take care of the people that are giving you the opportunity to be on this show, and give a shout out.
Well, thank you for that. I built that as much for my own reference as I did for teaching materials. So I got tired of looking back through old code to find examples. So thank you for that.
No, you're more than welcome.
We forgot to tell Rob not to compliment Eric. So here we are. He's not going to be able to get out of his room now.
Carl always tells me my head's going to get so big I won't make it out the door.
Well, you guys have been so welcoming in terms of, the PSOG in Orlando was really my coming out party, and I really appreciate how welcoming you were and how comfortable you made me feel to be part of that group that whole week, and it was just a great experience.
Well, and if you go look in your front door right now, you're going to find a plunger has been delivered. I'm joking, but yes, Rob was on stage as one of the let's call it the stage props in the end for one of the acts at that conference.
Part of the entertainment.
And the good sport that he is, ended up with a plunger squarely on top of his head.
Not only that, but I think Rob was missing $100 bill for a significant amount of
For
time.
a long time, yeah.
Yeah, and I got it back. And the bad news is that it was in my wallet, and I gave some money to my wife, and accidentally I gave her the $100 bill, and it is now missing in action.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Guess we'll just have to go back and do it again.
That gives karma someday.
That's right. Well, we probably have about 10 minutes left, and I want to get and give Rob a chance to kind of tell us if he's willing and able of kind of what the future of PSCB looks like, and if there's anything that you can kind of either hint at or give us to look forward to.
And also, I just wanted to also know, how has been the reception of the new site since you announced its release? What is the feedback you've been getting, and how many people do you know have navigated now since it's starting?
Well, I did have concern about going to the subscription-based portion, but I reached out to Roger and Adam and Jason Springle and Romney to get feedback, and they were very gracious, and they understood the reason that I felt we had to do this. They were very welcoming, and I do appreciate it. The feedback from people I've talked to has been great. I think I underestimated originally how popular these were going to be. And during my Zoom sessions, I'm finding out that, like in the state of Alabama, every school district is using PSCB reports.
Wow.
In North Dakota with Jack Knopp, he manages 163 districts. He's personally in control of maintaining all the PSV plugins.
Wow.
And the same is through the out of the country, or in other states, I should say. And we're finding out they're being used overseas as well. So I think people appreciate them. I think they understand the subscription. So I think the response has been good, and it will continue to be so.
And I think that comes as no surprise to us. I just wanted to get it out there in words, just to hear how well it's gone for you.
Well, they've often said, "We can't believe you're giving these away for free." And I said, well, that's true. And they said they've always expected that they'd have to pay something. And now I think they probably would be willing to pay a small amount.
Absolutely. So anything that you can tell us as far as projects that Manjeet might be working on and you? And can you give us any hints?
Yeah. Do you sense that I was avoiding this, or
maybe a little? And if you can't, that's fine too, Rob.
If there's no real top secrets, we are completely redoing the report bundles, and we're moving to a new format. And it's probably going to be that we're doing most of the queries using Power Queries. And we sent some coding to Brian, and we asked for his suggestion. And he really said that Power Queries was really the best way to go, because it involves filters that look at permissions and things of that nature. So we're doing that. But what Manjeet has done, he has designed a report template It's a single one. And the way that it works is that we have all of these reference files, one for each report. And what it does is it basically passes all of the information, whether it be filters, headings, the SQL, the output, to the report template, and the report is generated. And to see it in action is really quite amazing. So that's going to make our job a lot easier because we're not dealing, we have one reference file, which really is just converting what we already have and taking the SQL and making it a Power Query. But then we're bringing it into a template where you can have filters. The filters are all going to be drop down multi-select. And multi-select, I mean, you get checkboxes. No holding down the command key to pick what you want. Basically check what you want. So I want these store codes. I want these classes. I want these teachers. You simply select the ones you want. It's passed to the report template and the report is generated.
That is awesome.
That is
spectacular. So how long now before we can expect PSCB SIS?
Well, my commitment is that I wanted to carry this site on, and I'm committing to another 2 or 3 years. And my hope that it lives on after that, but there's going to have to be somebody to pick up the reins. And that's one of the things I'm looking forward to in the next couple of years is to find other people to get involved with the site who may want to take my spot at some point and continue like I did with Power Data Solutions. That's really my goal. And there will be no PSCB SIS.
Wah, wah.
That's good. We don't want to. We don't want you competing with the MBA SIS. If there's anyone from PowerSchool listening to this podcast right now,
was a
I'm
joke.
just kidding.
Yeah, you got to be careful when you're on when you're doing podcasts, because if you remember what happened to Jason when he did his April Fool's,
right? Yeah.
And I was
Jason
one of the
Springle. If you're listening, Jason Springle, I absolutely love you, but there's at least twice now that you have made a practical joke that people didn't understand was a practical joke.
Well, I got to tell you, I was one of them. I didn't read the fine print, and I thought he was serious. And I'm panicking, and I said, "You're changing this? We have all these new reports coming out, and now I got to go back and look at them." And then explain April Fools.
So if you don't know, also a few years ago, he was at PSUG, Wisconsin, and this was not long after Contacts had come out, and people were just still reeling from the efforts of migrating Contacts. And he got up and gave a keynote speech at Wisconsin PSUG and said that they were replacing student contacts with a new feature, and there'd be a different migration process that folks would have to go through again. And everybody got that he was having a laugh.
Probably a good reason he only told that joke one time.
That's when you have to remember at the end, you say, "I was only joking."
Yeah,
right.
Nudge, nudge.
But apparently he got a lot of feedback because it was just not myself, and I should have known better, but there was a lot of people that took him seriously.
Well,
Yeah,
people
for sure.
were posting to psug.io about that one and looking for what is your plan to deal with this? What is your plan to deal with this?
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, guys, unless there's anything else pressing that you want to get out of Rob, apparently no PSCB SIS coming, and that's probably a good thing. Rob, I can't say thank you enough, not only just for being on the podcast with us today, but everything you've done in the past couple decades. The PowerSchool community is definitely at a better place for having you around. Happy that you came out of your shell last fall, that you're now a face among the crowd instead of just a name. Looking forward to seeing what comes out of the future of PSCB. Thanks again for being on with us today, and that's all I got. Until next time, guys.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. Enjoy more episodes and learn more at mba-link.com.